Hey everybody, welcome to another Lost Ski Area Tour. I'm Avery Zucco, and this time I'm gonna show you around the former Kahkout Mountain ski area, which is in the Winona Lakes community near Bushkill Falls, Pennsylvania. So this area does not have a lot of information available to tell about it. And that's because this was a private ski area, and it's actually the history of private ski areas in the Poconos is pretty unique and I think pretty interesting to tell anyway, and this is a good example. Even though there wasn't a lot of information around, I still wanted to visit this place just because a lot of the ski area infrastructure is still in place and is pretty interesting to look at today. So yeah, um, I'm gonna do the same format as I did previously, just because there really isn't a whole lot of photos and stuff to go over. So I'm gonna do a little different narration this time. But I wanted to talk a little bit about private ski areas in the Poconos in general. Like I said, this is a good example of that. So Kahkout Mountain was built as part of the Winona Lakes vacation community in 1972. And it was the product of a man named Carl Hope and his company American Landmark, which was a real estate and development company. And Carl Hope is the guy that's responsible for building or developing Shawnee Mountain, which is very close by to Winona Lakes. Um, and in the 1970s in the Poconos, there was the trend of building these vacation communities, and what these essentially were a development company would come and buy a tract of land and then subdivide it and sell off the lots. And so you could buy a lot and build a home, or buy a home in that community. And they were intended to be basically vacation communities. You would build a vacation home or a second home there, and then come and visit it whenever you wanted. And you would have access to a lot of private amenities as part of being a member of that community. So maybe you had a lake and you could go fishing, or they would have tennis, they would have a pool. Usually they had some sort of community event space, kind of banquet hall sort of a thing. Maybe they had golf or whatever. And in 1972, Mr. Hope built Winona Lakes and included a ski area within that community, a private ski area that was only accessible to residents who owned a home in the Winona Lakes community, or I guess guests of Winona Lakes residents. And this is something that caught on in the Poconos, and a lot of these private ski areas were built. Several more were actually built by Carl Hope. Pocono Ranch Lands, which is pretty close to Winona Lakes, that's also built with a private ski area, which is actually still in operation today, believe it or not. And Big Bear up at Masthope, or Masthope, I'm not really sure how exactly the town is pronounced. That was another example of a ski area built within one of these vacation communities. That is now open to the public. But there were other places built like this. Tanglewood is another that's also closed down now. And Saw Creek, which is also still open and is nearby to Bushkill Falls, this kind of area of the Poconos. Laurel Hill, Laurel Ridge, Laurel Glen, something like that, has a ski hill. That's an interesting one because that one is actually still in operation. They have a T-bar on a short slope. It's a real small operation, and they don't have any snowmaking, and they just run it off of volunteers' time to run it when it snows. One of the ways that they keep costs down. And that's right next to Arrowhead Lake, which also had their own private ski area, and that is also closed. So yeah, there were a bunch of these private ski areas around the Poconos. It's something that I don't know that was ever really replicated outside of Pennsylvania, outside of the Poconos in particular. There was this sort of local kind of trend of building these vacation communities and saying, oh well, you'll come here, you'll build your cabin or your whatever, your vacation home, and you'll get to use the ski resort. And so that was all great back in the 70s. But the problem is that these areas are expensive to maintain. It's expensive to run a ski resort. It's expensive to make snow and run a ski lift and everything else, maintain the place. And as these areas aged, several of them closed down. So Kahkout Mountain and Winona Lakes followed that pattern. In 2008, the residents of the community had to decide whether or not to keep the ski area operating. By this time, the number of days that the ski area was operating and the number of people that were making use of it had dropped pretty precipitously since the 1970s and 1980s. They were only operating on weekends, I think like Fridays or something like that, and they were only open a handful of days a year. So you were basically paying people to come out and make snow and maintain a ski area and run it for a handful of days, and it wasn't really worth it. Also, the chairlift that they installed, it was a Borvig double chair that was built in 1972. It needed to be overhauled. So in 2008, they voted on whether or not to put the money in to overhaul the lift and the infrastructure in the ski area. They voted that down by a pretty sizable margin, and the ski area closed down and hasn't operated since 2008. So that is the story behind the Winona Lake ski area known as Kahkout Mountain. Which is a unique story, I think, in lost ski area history. These kind of private areas in Pennsylvania that a bunch of them just didn't make it because the people in these communities have to pay for it. They're not open to the public, so they can't raise money off ticket sales and things like that. It's all up to basically community fees, and it's difficult to continually raise that money from the community. Some of these places are still open. Like I said, Pocono Ranchland still has one. Saw Creek still has one. And Locust Hill, or not Locust, Laurel Hill, or Ridge. I'm not sure. It's another one of these sort of like vacation second home communities. And it's worth pointing out these communities are not second homes anymore for the most part. A lot of these are primary residences. It's one of the things that's changed over time. They're operating just with volunteer labor, and so you can really see that these things were small operations and they were shoestring operations, so they were pretty vulnerable to shutting down. Okay. So this is the bottom terminal in the loading area today. So this is the drive terminal for the Borvig double chair, and it's got I think it's got a pretty unique, well, pretty interesting looking angular drive terminal. I think Borvig did make a lot of chairlifts like this. These are pretty common for this time period. And it's an upside down ski area, so the lodge is up at the top. And I'm not sure what this building was. This is one of those like prefabricated sheds that you can buy at Home Depot. I don't know what they use it for, maybe just maintenance, but it's got a lot of ski area detritus inside it now. I thought it was cool. There's a bunch of posters up here. An atomic poster. I don't remember. There's a spy poster, old spy goggle poster, and a what was this? A Sessions special blend. Can't tell what the logo was there, and just a bunch of stuff. There's an old ski boot, Solomon ski boot. Looks like a women's ski boot, and an old pole. And a bunch of other detritus, leftover stuff from the ski area. There's a lot of the orange and black, caution poles and fencing and stuff that they would have put out, caution, stuff. And a lot of hose for the snowmaking. So I don't know if this was like is this a storage building or what. But there's a lot of stuff left. And then This is walking up now. That's about a quarter of the way up the mountain. So this is a larger mountain. It's about 450 vertical feet. And this was one of the snowmaking hookups here. There's the electrical, and there's the hydrant. And I believe they used fan guns. I don't know if they exclusively used fan guns, but I know they did have quite a few of those. And as you continue up the mountain, about halfway up, you come to, there's this big open field here where the trails merge from the top down. And yeah, you can see the chairlift is really striking at this place just because it's totally intact. The chairs are still on it. It's pretty interesting to look at. So looking up the mountain here, you can kind of see that head wall up at the top. That's the steepest part of the ski area. And there's a trail on the right. There's another trail on the left. Those are the two most advanced trails. In the woods to the right of what we're looking at now is the beginner trail. You can't see it. And then on the left in the woods are two intermediate trails. So that's the other most advanced trail looking up the mountain right there. So there were about 5 different ways down from the top. And they all kind of merge down this field here. And so I chose to walk up that leftmost advanced trail. And it is pretty steep. There's a good, I'd say a good solid 200 and 250 vertical feet of a pitch that's about 35 degrees sustained, which is, you know, it's an actual advanced trail. It's a short one, but you could definitely get a little workout on this mountain. And so you can just get an idea how steep the trail is. So yeah, you know, it's pretty steep. This is up from the top of that advanced trail. And you got some really nice views up here. And so this is, you know, this is probably one of the larger of these private ski areas, and one of the larger lost ski areas in Pennsylvania, in the Mid-Atlantic, I think, in general. And this is so the top of the chairlift. And all the signage is still up here, which I thought was pretty cool to see. You know, the unload and loading signs. And over on this side, they had a little area up at the top here. I think that they use as a beginner area, a learning area, and they had a pony handle tow. That they've got sitting here now. And then they use this field as the learning area. Now that's the lodge up at the top. They're still using that as kind of like the event, like the community kind of banquet hall, event space. It's like a community center kind of a thing. There's a pool on the other side also. And then up here is the unload area for the chairlift. Again, it's got that angular shape to it. And the attendance shack. So heading back down from the top, you'll see the top of the beginner trail actually starts here, and then it goes back under the lift to the left, and then it basically goes down the mountain. It's sort of skier's left. This is the This is, I think, where they would have put the sleds for ski patrol, for carrying people down. There's a bunch of snowmaking hose here now. Some more of the caution poles. There's a lot of stuff left here. Trail signs. And so this is walking down the intermediate trail. So the beginner trail is skiers left from the top. It kind of curves underneath the chairlift, and then it goes all the way out, skiers left, and loops back down to that field at the bottom. There's one of the advanced trails on the left side of the chairlift. This is the other advanced trail. This is the one that I walked up. And this is actually where the beginner trail cuts out. You can see the beginner trail here on the left, and then it goes under the chairlift to loop back around. And then you go to the right here, and that goes straight down the pit, down that head wall. Some more signage. This is all faded. This was the diamond, the black diamond. Most difficult. And then if you kept on down this trail, so this is all the intermediate way down. And this trail splits. There was one trail that split off to the left and is a little bit narrower. Goes down through those pine trees there. So one thing I have to admit, walking around this place, I like the layout of the trails. I really did. There were those two advanced trails that looked, you know, they were pretty steep, weren't too wide. Intermediate trails are, you know, nice and windy, and they make really good use of natural evergreen growth. There's another of the signs in there. This is the other intermediate trail. And I really like that. I like the way that they used the terrain and they used the natural evergreen growth. When mountains do that, I'm always happy about it. I always find it really nice to ride through that. It also shades the trails, and that helps preserve snow. More snowmaking hydrants here. I don't think this place was lit. I didn't see any lights, and I don't think they had them to begin with. I think this was a day-only operation. And this is one of those areas that, I mean, I'm upset that any of these areas are closed, you know? You lose a little bit of the ski culture in the area, but this is one of these areas that, you know, I'd pay $35 to ski here. I mean, I would be interested to see what it was like. I like the layout of the trails, you know, it's one of these areas that you are sad to sort of see not open anymore. Although it was private, which is a shame. And not all these areas stayed private. Big Bear is open now. Actually, Big Bear was developed by the same guy, Carl Hope, and you can still go there and ski there. And Shawnee Mountain was developed by the same person also. And I'm not sure if any of the lessons, I think, when that were used building Shawnee were kind of carried over here, or what the deal was, but it definitely feels like it was a professionally designed ski area. It's not just it's an area that some thought was really put into when they built this place. And so this is back at the top of that field, and yeah, so this was Kahkout Mountain in the Winona Lakes community in near Bushkill Falls, Pennsylvania. Well, I hope you found this video informative as always. If you have any memories or recollections of skiing here, please post in the comments. There's not a lot of information on this area, so I'd love to hear more about, you know, what it was like when it was open. So as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.